The Empyrean teaches that the Golden Throne saved humanity, that it preserved the Emperor and prevented total collapse. But imagine this instead. The moment the Emperor was placed upon the throne, something went wrong. Not slowly, not over centuries, instantly. A failure so sudden that no one on Terra had time to understand it. No alarms, no heroic last stand. Just a brief, terrible silence, followed by a scream that echoed through the warp itself. This is not a story of survival. This is the story of a single mechanical failure that erased the future of mankind. Because the Golden Throne was never just a life support system. It was the final barrier between reality and annihilation. And in this timeline, that barrier never held. As the Horus heresy reached its end, the Emperor was carried into the deepest chambers of the Imperial Palace. His body was broken beyond any natural recovery, but his mind remained dangerously active. The Golden Throne was activated under extreme pressure, its mechanisms never fully tested for such catastrophic damage. Tech priests rushed rituals of calibration. Custodians stood guard as reality itself strained around the chamber. Then, at the exact moment the throne was meant to stabilize the Emperor's shattered form, its arcane systems desynchronized. Power surged where it should not. Warp containment fields collapsed out of phase. Instead of anchoring the Emperor, the throne amplified the damage. For a fraction of a second, Terra felt weightless, as if the planet itself it was about to be pulled apart. The Golden Throne did not explode. That would have been mercy. Instead, it failed silently and completely. The psychic stabilizers designed to contain the Emperor's presence burned out in an instant. The throne's core systems began feeding uncontrolled energy back into his already fractured state. Rather than preserving him, the machine accelerated his disintegration. Those present did not witness a death in any normal sense. They witnessed a collapse, a mind too vast, suddenly unanchored, the chamber filled with impossible pressure. Custodians fell to their knees. Tech priests went blind as their implants overloaded. And deep beneath Terra, the sealed Imperial Webway gate began to crack wide open. The Imperial Webway project had always been a controlled disaster waiting to happen. It relied entirely on the Emperor's constant focus to keep the warp at bay. With the throne failing, that focus vanished. The gate did not simply open, it ruptured. Warp entities flooded into the tunnels beneath the palace, unchecked and unopposed. Defensive systems activated too late. Entire custodian formations were erased in moments. The palace foundations began to twist and fold as reality lost cohesion. Terra, the most fortified world in human history, was breached not by fleets or armies, but by the failure of a single machine designed to hold back the impossible. Without the Golden Throne's stabilization, the Emperor could not persist in any coherent form. His consciousness no longer bound to a physical anchor, fractured across the warp. There was no final command, no message to his sons, no last safeguard. Just absence. The Astronomicon, powered by his focused will, flickered violently and went dark. Across the galaxy, navigators screamed as warp routes collapsed into madness. Fleets were lost mid-translation. Entire systems vanished from Imperial contact within hours. The Imperium did not realize it had lost its central pillar. It only felt the sudden, overwhelming chaos that followed. With the webway breach fully opened, Terra became a focal point of warp convergence. Demonic forces poured into the underhive levels and palace vaults. Planetary defense systems turned on one another as command structures failed. Mars lost synchronization with Terra, severing logistical coordination. The Imperial Palace, once a symbol of absolute control, became a war zone consumed from the inside out. Billions died within days. The heart of human civilization was no longer defensible. It was becoming something else entirely. a permanent scar in reality where the warp bled freely into real space. Without the Astronomicon, faster-than-light travel became a gamble few survived. Segmentum Command collapsed. Planetary governors declared independence or fell to internal wars. The Adeptus Astartes were isolated, unable to regroup or coordinate. Some chapters vanished entirely, lost in the warp. Others turned on nearby systems simply to secure resources. The Imperium had never been truly united. It had only been held together by distance-defying communication and fear. With both gone, it fractured into thousands of disconnected empires, each struggling to survive in total isolation. The surviving Primarchs felt the Emperor's loss immediately, but could do nothing to prevent it. Scattered across the galaxy, they lacked the means to reunite. Some attempted to hold their regions together through force alone. Others disappeared into endless war against chaos incursions they could no longer contain. Without centralized authority or reliable warp travel, even beings of immense power were reduced to isolated warlords. The dream of a unified human future died not with a final battle, but through silence and distance. With Terra destabilized and the Astronomicon extinguished, chaos achieved what it had never managed through direct conquest. It won by default. Warp storms expanded unchecked. Entire sectors were consumed. Demonic influence spread without resistance. The long war was no longer necessary. Humanity was no longer a singular opponent. It was a scattered, collapsing species fighting itself while the warp closed in from all sides. Victory did not require a throne, a champion, or a final duel. It only required time. As humanity fell inward, other powers rose outward. The Necrons reclaimed worlds without opposition. Eldar factions manipulated fractured human systems with ease. Orc empires expanded unchecked, drawn to endless conflict. The Tau encountered isolated human colonies unable to resist absorption. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy shifted away from human dominance, not through invasion, but through neglect. Humanity was no longer the central force shaping the stars. It was simply another fading presence. What followed was not an age of immediate extinction, but something far worse: stagnation. Cut off from one another, human worlds regressed technologically and culturally. Knowledge was lost faster than it could be preserved. Without interstellar coordination, threats could not be contained. Every system fought alone. This was not the end of humanity. It was the slow erosion of everything it had built since the Age of Strife. The Golden Throne was never a symbol. It was a function, a mechanism holding together a fragile structure built on impossible foundations. When it failed, it revealed the truth the Imperium never wanted to admit. Its survival depended on a single point of failure. Remove that point and everything collapses. Not in fire, not in glory, but in silence, isolation, and endless war. In this timeline, the Emperor does not endure. Terra does not recover. The Imperium does not evolve. It simply fragments and fades. The Golden Throne fails once, and humanity spends the rest of existence paying for that single moment. Not with a final extinction, but with an eternal struggle it can no longer win.